Madeline knocked hard on the door. She waited, but there was no response. She pressed her ear to the door, but could hear nothing through the thick walnut. Feeling like a thief and not wanting to be caught, she tentatively opened the door. "Richard, are you there?" Although there was no response to her greeting, she heard the soft, breathy cries of a lady. Sarah sounded like she was in pain. What on earth was Richard doing to her? Not wishing anyone who happened to venture into the hall to see or hear, she stepped into the room and rather loudly closed the door behind her. Surely this would announce her presence. The room was dimly lit, but she could make out 2 people on the settee. They still appeared not to have heard or seen her. She tried with an added cough. She knew she should not look at the couple, but the quest for knowledge about what went on between a man and a woman overrode her sense of propriety. She stood mesmerized. Richard had discarded his jacket and waistcoat. They lay thrown behind him on the floor as if he'd disrobed in a hurry. His shirt was on, much to her disappointment, although Maddie was too scared to acknowledge that thought. He was kneeling on the floor, leaning over Sarah, who lay prone on the settee. Maddie moved closer and gasped, and her hand flew to her mouth. The situation was scandalous, and Lord Wrentham would have every right to challenge Richard if he were to enter. The image of Richard fighting a duel, and his possible subsequent injury or death, spurred her on. She gathered her composure, moved closer, and in a loud voice uttered, "I hate to interrupt, but—"
"Go away, brat," he growled.
"Believe me, I'd love to, but—"
"Christ, not now, Maddie. What the hell are you doing in here?"
Richard sat back on the balls of his feet, while still on his knees at Sarah's feet. All Maddie could see was a very angry and gorgeous Richard. She couldn't seem to get her lungs to work. Her breath caught in her throat as she soaked up the beauty of the naked expanse of rippling stomach and muscled chest displayed through the flaps of Richard's open shirt. He rose to his feet, anger scoring his handsome features.
"This better be important, or, by God, I'll put you over my knee. Do you realize how inappropriate it is for you to be in here?"
Maddie's temper flared. "It's not as inappropriate as seducing another man's wife." Her barb hit its mark as she watched Richard's fists clench at his sides and heard Sarah give a cry of distress. Maddie tore her gaze from Richard and looked at Sarah. She'd covered herself, drawing her gown back on. Her face was filled with misery, and Maddie felt a stab of regret at her words. Sarah loved Richard, but had been forced into a marriage with Charles. Maddie did feel genuine pity for her. She knew firsthand what a bully all the Chestertons were. Marriage to Charles would be a nightmare. However, she would not let Sarah's terrible life choice destroy her only friend. Sarah should have stood up to her father. She should have chosen Richard and had faith in him. "I'm sorry, Sarah. That was unkind."
"Damn right. This is none of your business."
For the first time in her life, Richard looked at her with something akin to hate. She swallowed back tears. "Charles is here. He's looking for Sarah. He thinks she's with you, and, of course, he's right," she couldn't help adding. Richard swore, and Sarah jumped to her feet. "He can't find me with you. He'll kill me." Sarah stood quaking, looking helplessly at Richard for assistance. This time it was Maddie who clenched her fists. Once again, Sarah's only concern was for herself.
"I won't let him hurt you," Richard vowed.
Maddie didn't see how Richard could ever promise that unless he killed Charles. Oh no, kill Charles? He'd do it, for Sarah.